welcome to the October 19th special session of the City Council for the consideration of the tax classification for fiscal year 2022. I now call this meeting to order. Please be advised, FATV is conducting audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask that anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating your name and address. Seeing none, Councillor Kuchar, would you please lead us in salute to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councillor Kuchar.
Here.
Councillor Di Natale.
Here.
Councillor Fleming. Here. Councillor Green. Here. Councillor Hughes.
Here.
Councillor Schultz.
Here.
Councillor Squalia.
Present.
Councillor Van Hazinga.
Here.
Councillor Walsh.
Here.
President Zarella.
Here.
Councillor Boschman.
Present.
Thank you. I will now read the warrant for the special meeting. A special meeting of the City Council will be held on Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, immediately following the regular City Council meeting, which is scheduled to begin at 7 p.m. to be held in the Legislative Building, 700 Main Street, Fitchburg, Mass. 01420. The agenda will consist of the following: a hearing, a classification and taxation of property according to its use in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 797 of the Acts of 1979 as amended by Chapter 79 of the Acts of 1983. Per order, Anthony M. Zarella, President of the City Council, and signed by Mary D. Alderetti, City Clerk. I now declare the hearing open. Would the tax classification team please approach the table? And you may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, President Zarella, members of the City Council. My name is Chris Paquette, and I'm the Chief Assessor for the City of Fitchburg. I'd like to thank you all for taking time out to meet this evening to determine the fiscal 2022 tax rate for the City of Fitchburg. I'd like to start by thanking the members of the Assessor's Office, Jerry Millette, Kelly Arsenault, and Tom Caputi for their hard work and dedication to making the office run as smoothly as possible in these unique times. It's through all their hard work that I sit before you this evening to discuss this year's tax rate classification. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize and welcome the newest member of the Assessor's Office, Ryan Bove. Ryan's a Fitchburg native, resident, and soon-to-be property owner with an impressive resume and skill set that I'm confident will help our office continue to offer the best assessments, data quality, and customer service for the citizens of Fitchburg. Fiscal year 2022, aside from the COVID pandemic, brought about several challenges to our office. Transitioning to a new office model allowed our office to review all our data as if it were a full revaluation year and make more thorough adjustments to many areas that normally remain static in interim years. This has enabled us to be proactive in reestablishing baseline values as well as conduct future needs assessments before they become unforeseen issues. This year, I'm happy to report the following. The Department of Revenue issued final approval for the fiscal year 2022 values on August 18th, 2021. $3.42 billion in assessed value is the highest value in the City of Fitchburg's history, an increase of $372 million in assessed value over last year's historic high. The Department of Revenue also approved new growth on the same day. New growth for fiscal 2022 was $758,000 tax dollars. For fiscal 2022, growth was led by an uptick in newer, higher-end home construction. 26 permits for single-family homes were issued in calendar year 2020, where residential growth was greater than 50% of the new growth for the first time since 2009. The remainder was 16% commercial industrial and 33% personal property. For the interim year valuation, the Board of Assessors analyzed all sales transactions during calendar year 2020. There were 315 qualified single-family arm's-length sales with a median sale price of $281,100. There were 392 sales of greater than $1,000 with a median sale price of $252,000, according to the Warren Group. Both confirm the residential property values increased by a robust 12%. Commercial and industrial property increased 4.4% and 5.1% respectively. Personal property also showed an increase of 36.8% due to a change in the way the Department of Revenue requires utility companies to be valued, resulting in a $64 million value increase to Unitil. This increase results in Unitil paying an additional $1.1 million in property taxes for fiscal year 2022. The highlights for fiscal 22, if the single rate is approved, would be the lowest average single-family increase since 2014, the lowest single rate since 2011, $17.61 per thousand, a reduction of $1.42 on the current single tax rate, and the fourth lowest average tax bill in the surrounding communities. The analysis of the year-to-date 2021 calendar sales also show an increase in the number of property transactions year-to-date. This primary analysis also shows another substantial 12% increase in the median sale price for a single-family home. Our office's goals moving forward in looking towards the 2025 revaluation are to continue to rework the valuations to fall in line with state standard, to continue to fall in line with state standards. And our office is now looking to focus on renewing our efforts to increase the personal property tax base, improve data quality through field review, and implement new technologies to increase overall efficiencies and improve customer service. With that, I thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Questions and comments from councilors? Councilor Green.
Yes, thank you, and that's such great news to hear. I'm pleased about all of that. I have some specific questions on the data on page 43. And my question is, I see that we've got the housing stock listed by the property types, and I'm wondering, on the congregate group housing, 3 of those and 27 units, what is the difference between group housing there and boarding houses or our exempt group housing?
The difference would be in how the building is physically structured. It may be that a boarding home has a bathroom in each unit, or congregant housing would be more of a dormitory style. However, it's not used for a dormitory. Could be like a AA facility or something along those lines. So the congregate housing is usually a sober house, as opposed to a boarding house, which doesn't have any parameters other than you're renting a room.
Okay.
So it's the structure in which the operation is conducted.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Boschman.
Mr. President, I'll yield the chair first, let other people ask questions, and then I'll go.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, Councilor Boschman.
Council Boschman. Chris, I guess you know, page 41, is it fair to say that total tax exempt in the city of Fitchburg is 19.25%?
Yes, Counselor.
So the residents pay 80% of that bill, and 1/4 of that, 120% is not paid.
Well, no, the residents and the commercial, industrial, personal property pay 100% of the bill. It's just 19.27% of the properties are exempt.
All right. Now, we're gonna go back, over here, I think it's page 26. Total growth valuation. And on the bottom, in the first part, growth analyst by class. You got 3-year average, 5-year average, and 10-year average is 7 million, 7 million, 7 million. But then if you look at fiscal 22 on the top residential, you get 20,221,700. If we're building 18 new houses and that's all, how do we come up with 20 million? Whereas we're 3 times higher than the 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year. 7 million, 7 million, I'm rounding it off, 7 million. And we get 20 million.
I don't have the I don't have the growth chart in front of me or the reported growth, but I believe that may have had something to do with a larger scale apartment building, which is not commercial, they are residential. So for instance, if 1428 Main Street were part of this, the yarn mills or something of that, it would have a greater impact on the valuation for the residential properties. I don't off the top of my head know what contributed to that. There is a report I'd be happy to provide you.
Okay.
I don't have my laptop with me at the moment.
And then we have a growth rate that 1.16% to the far right, total growth as percentage of total right over here. The growth is total percent.
Correct.
Is that for everything that's commercial and everything?
That's the entire growth. If you see the city's total value is 3.421 billion. Of that, 39 million is growth, which comes out to 1.6% of the city's, or 16% of the city's overall value.
No. You have to bear with me because I'm on this here. Is it fair, we went down to a single tax rate because this was going to open up Fitchburg and they were going to be flocking in here because the thing that was hurting us was the dual tax rate in the city of Fitchburg from getting businesses to come in. But on page 8, if you look at page 8 and you look at the value of percentage, the one that benefited the most out of this, and is actually hardly very little growth, is commercial and industrial benefited by that single tax rate. It didn't help the residents at all, and I don't see that much growth in the business aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Again, that's a policy issue that you, as members of the council, decided to adopt
I understand
a
that,
single
but
tax
I'm just
rate.
saying that to my fellow councilors, because they were all in a hurry to make a single tax rate, because we all said, well, it's going to open us up and help us out.
Counselor, I would like to point out that if you're looking at page 8, for fiscal 22, 78.9% is residential.
Right.
The year prior, it was 79. So if you do the math, there's a slight shift towards the commercial, industrial, personal property. The residential percentage of the levy is actually dropping, which is basically what was intended, as opposed to having an artificial shift through a tax shift.
Well, wouldn't that drop because the evaluation of the city property went up? I mean, you started off at 200,000 and now you're up to 252. I mean, wouldn't that change it? Because you only get 18 new houses being built.
Right, but as far as the values are concerned, it takes place in each property class. So a single-family home may have gone up 12%, a two-family may have gone up 14% this year, or 16%, whereas a commercial industrial property went up 4 to 5%. There's a number of factors at play. Commercial industrial properties tend to be more consistent because they have long-term leases on them, whereas the residential market is volatile because it's based on sales.
Right, I understand that.
So when the market's high, people are running out and they're spending money on single families, two families, three families, investment properties, whereas if you're building a commercial building, your hope is to have a suitable tenant that's going to be in it for 20 years. So its value is more stable.
Well, you being the assessor, have you seen the change since we went to a single tax rate?
And you can see it in the math here, in the percentages.
I went in the percentages and I see it going down. In 2019, which was commercial, it was at 10 and 3/8. I'm going to round it off on page 8. In 2019, 2020 it went down to 9.9% and commercial. In 2021 it went down to 9.615. In 2022 it was down to 8.955.
In commercial,
In commercial music.
there was a slight shift from commercial to industrial or to personal property in those years.
And it'd be basically about the same thing happening in the industrial. And personal property went up a little bit, especially on the fiscal 22 and went to 6.804. All right, and then there's one other question, I think, if I can find my page. I don't have them marked. I think it's on page, I've got one quick question. It was on page where you, I think it's here. I have it highlighted, but I didn't mark it. I'll use the yield of 4 for now till I find my page that I want.
You have 2 shots.
Huh?
You have 2 shots, you won't
Oh,
use one.
and we
so-
better, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I apologize for not having my page. On the abatements, it was the abatements, I was looking at the abatements for the last few years, and I noticed it went from so much to so much, I don't know what page that's on.
36, Counselor.
what page?
Page 36.
36. Can I ask you what happened on page 36? No, that's not the one I was looking at.
Exemptions, or,
It was one you had, it went from 50, we gave abatements of 55,000, and it was, and for the 3 years prior. I just would like to know
Yeah, that's
why.
page 36 at the bottom.
What's that?
36 at the bottom.
36?
thank you.
Yeah, they're okay, 36 at the bottom. Tax abatement. You went from, you had 16, then you had 25, then you went to 19, then you went to 14, now you went to 56 and 19, 20 you went to 54, and now we're back down to 19. What was the reason for 54, 56, and then 19?
I'm not seeing your numbers, Counselor. What,
Total amount abated. the bottom
In
of
the
the
final
page on
table of
36.
page 36.
oh, the amount, okay. The abatements are based on the number of filings. So if you see at the top of that chart, in fiscal '20, there were 70 abatements filed for. There were 33 abatements granted, and they varied in price, in amount granted, based on each individual case. So there was a total of $54,000 out of the overlay to cover those abatements. When the market's going up, people tend to file less on their values. The reason is their house is worth what it's assessed for. So a lot of times the abatements are typically for overvaluations due to a data error. Somebody would file and say, well, I don't have 3 bathrooms. So that might result in an abatement of $3,500 in assessed value, or say $60. So it all depends on, how many abatements are filed that year and whether or not they're relevant or they're, justifiable. For fiscal '20, the larger number, again, I don't have that information with me, but we may have settled a case from years past, a commercial case, and I believe that would have probably been 19 and 20. There was a $20,000 or so abatement granted after going to the appellate tax board. So that would be reflected in the amount of money taxes abated.
And, Mr. President, I got one thing to say here. To the young man right there next to Chris, I want to say I'm glad you're buying in Fitchburg, and there's plenty of room up in Ward 2 so you can get to know me. That's it, Mr. President, on my case right now.
Thank you very much. Councilor Giannatalli.
I want to make something abundantly clear, as I have 14 years in a row now. The single tax rate shift, I want to say that I was probably the biggest proponent of that, and I'm proud that we got to it. In no time ever in 14 years has any proponent of a single tax rate ever said that once we achieve it, the residential base is going to go down to 50%. Never was said. What has been said is that it is a tool in the economic development shed that we did not have. 98% of Worcester County had a single rate. We were the only ones who did not, other than Worcester and Clinton. From a marketing perspective, we were non-competitive. So the single tax rate was to bring us in line with surrounding communities, to, at a minimum, maintain our hold on our commercial and industrial tax base, and not incentivize them beyond the incentive they may have with Unitil. We wanted to do what we could on the tax side to keep them here, because if they leave, the values go away, and the residents pick up the slack. What we have seen since the single tax rate has been implemented, and it's not all because of it, but it's a contributing factor, is we have seen our commercial industrial tax base stabilize and uptick slightly. We have seen, I want to bring up one statistic, two statistics. Our effective tax rate right now is 1.761%. It is the lowest it's been since 2015. And why is that important? Because in 2015, we were at 2.255. We were just a few ticks below hitting the ceiling, which is catastrophic for this city with a pension debt through the nose. We are now dropping in that area consecutively, consistently over the last 6 years. We are going back in the right direction. The second piece of information I wanted to explain to people is, since the implementation of the single tax rate, page 13, the first row, under residential for an average single-family home. The increase, if we maintain the single tax rate, for an average single-family homeowner is $113.32. Now, when I say that, a lot of people probably will shut their mind off and say, he just said we're getting an increase of $113.32 for the year, which translates into $28.33 per quarter and $9.44 a month. $113.32. In 2015, the average tax increase on the homeowner was $344.63, triple what it is today. In 2017, it was actually even higher, $355.53. 2018, $348.43. In that 4-year period, the taxes on average for the residents increased collectively by $1,300. And then the single tax rate arrived, coupled with valuation growth. It was actually a twofer. 2020, $194.62 increase. Prior to that, it was $348, a massive drop. 2021, $154.86, another drop. Now at $113.32, That represents a 67% decrease since 2015 in the average single-family homeowner's tax increase. Now, I am not here to justify or wave pom-poms in the air that the residents are getting an increase. The residents are getting an increase because they make up 79% of the base. But you got to look at the rate of increase over that 6-year period. 345, 355, 348, 310, 195, 150, 113. 113. The increases residents were getting 5-6 years ago were more than triple what they are today. We have to emphasize that. And I'm not saying that to say, yippee, there's another increase. But it's better than $350. It's better than 355, 348, and 310. And all this has happened since we achieved the single rate. So that's why we did this. When you have valuation growth coupled with a single tax rate, this is what you get. And I will take a victory lap for this. This is excellent that the increase is declining at a rapid rate, which is what I have always said is the goal. We want to get that increase down to 0. And if we keep on the current trajectory, we're going to get there in a couple of years. Here's hoping. But in the context of our historical information, this increase this year is so much less than it was before. And we have to emphasize that. No one's happy anyone's got to pay more. But we all said many years ago, we did not lie to the public or mislead them. We said, you will continue to see increases because you make up 79% of the base. But the goal is to see those increases decline year after year. And the data is quite clear. It is precipitously dropped. So that is why we did what we did. And thank God the Sentinel doesn't cover these meetings anymore, because what the Sentinel would typically do is say, your tax bill's going up $28 a quarter, because they didn't provide context, because they weren't intelligent enough to digest this. So thankfully they don't care about local politics anymore. They're too busy with what's going on in Lowell and Boston. So that's why I'm saying this tonight. But I want to emphasize, no one said ever that a single tax rate was going to bring in a flood of businesses. And I want to add one last point to that. We continue to talk like we haven't seen any economic vitality in the last 2 or 3 years. We continue to talk as if we haven't had any growth on the commercial industrial side. Game on Fitchburg just came online within the last year. A $500,000 piece of property that's now valued at $9 million. New development. And $250,000 in added tax revenue. They came here. Amazon came here, building a $30 million new facility, and the breadth of personal property taxes with all their trucks and vehicles that we haven't even factored in yet into our tax system. Downtown Fitchburg, I am tired of talking about this because constituents of mine, for some reason, don't want to accept good news about this city. Look at all the activity going on down here. We got B.F. Brown coming, we got the theater block coming, we have Morin Square happening now, the diner just opened up, you got Bion, El Bolio, you got Espresso, you got Tacos Tequilas, you got Dario's moving in here, you got Kingston Island Cuisine, you got a bike repair shop that's going up the street. So Rome wasn't built in a day. Maybe I'm different thinking because I was here in 2008 when this city was in the doldrums. Okay? Things are moving. And we got 2 big projects in downtown that haven't even started yet that are in the development phase. New developments, which is critical to increasing that 21% tax base. Corner of Snow and Day Street, and behind the CVS on Snow Street, the FRA-owned lot, where there's a huge $30 million development going on over there, or will be. So let's be contextual and factual. This is a tremendously good news report. It's better than it was last year, and last year's was pretty good. I'm going to take our wins where I can get them, because I'm sick and tired of the negativity about this city. And I'm not so much talking about my colleague, I'm just saying it in general. Good things are happening. I want people to read this report. And I will encourage them to read this, because this tells you everything. How far we've come in the last 6 to 10 years. It's great, and there's more to come. And the single tax rate solidifies our growth prospects. It makes us competitive. The last thing I'll make clear here, the tax rate is less important, but it's still worth noting. $17.61 per $1,000. The tax rate 5 years ago was $26.42. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong page.
Yeah.
It was, what page? Right here, sorry.
What page?
Page 10. Look at our tax rate right now, $17.61, and look at what it was. When was the last time we were at $17.61? 11 years ago. $17.29 was our rate in 2011. So the rate we're doing right now is the lowest it's been in over a decade. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Counselor Green for the second time.
Thank you. And Chris, would you mind emphasizing on page 34, where you've done us the favor breaking down the tax bill breakdown based on all of our departments and what the residents pay based on their tax bill? Because I think it's important for people to know that, you know, especially when residents call and have a concern maybe about the condition of the road, or maybe a pothole out in front of on their street, or, you know, the school building may be looking a little run down. Would you mind just going through this under services and out of their tax bill, how much of that tax bill actually goes to those services?
Okay, sure. The second section here?
Yes.
In the middle? So in this chart, the breakdown is approximate cost of services to the average homeowner with a single-family home. For services, city management is $41.42. Finance and administration is $80.31. Debt service is $103.93. The police service is $281.65. The cost of fire is $264.37. The cost of public works is $138.34. The cost attributed to the Board of Health and Building Department would be $51.08. Facilities and maintenance for city buildings upkeep would be $9.08. Community development would be $19.20. The cost of rubbish removal would be $80.45. Human services would be $74.05. Cost attributed to the general fund would be $1,125.74, and the cost to the schools would be $2,174.93, for a total average single-family tax bill of $4,444. So it would be broken up percentage-wise. The largest percentage would go towards the school department by far.
Right, I just think that's important when residents have a concern on why why their tax bill is $4,000. And yes, that's a cost of doing business when you own a home, when you own property. That's your obligation. And the percentage has to be divided by many different departments. So thank you for doing that. I think that's important for residents to know how their money is spent.
You're welcome.
I'd like to briefly comment, and I'm not a finance guy, so feel free to correct me if I state anything incorrect. But one thing I try to explain to the residents each year is how this tax system actually works, and therefore why it's important to encourage business growth in order to lower the residential tax rates. Unlike the federal or state tax system, where they just take a certain percentage from everyone and whatever they end up with, they spend however they want. Our tax levy each year is a fixed pie. We know going in how much total tax we are collecting. And the only question is how that tax burden gets divided across different properties in the city. So the reason the homeowners pay so much is because there's a lot more residential property than commercial and industrial property in the city. The more commercial and industrial value comes in, the larger slice of pie is getting dished out to the commercial and industrial owners, which means less remaining to be placed on the homeowners. And since none of the homeowners want to have pie on them, we need more commercial and industrial investment. The total pie is not going to shrink. Barring a massive economic upheaval in the country, the cost of running this city is not going to shrink. The tax levy is not going to get lower year over year. It's not feasible, at least not in the near term. So the only thing we can influence to give homeowners tax relief is to shift more of that pie to other taxpayers. In the past, we did this artificially. We basically said, here's your share of the pie, but we're actually going to give you this much and insist that you pay it. And that was bad for business. Now we're doing it the right way. We're focusing on getting more of that business and industrial sector to take their fair share, and that fair share then gets larger. So I am also very pleased that we finally got down to a single tax rate. I haven't been working on it quite as long as Councilor Di Natale has, but it's been something that I had been pushing for since I first ran. I was thrilled that we accomplished it, and tonight I will definitely be supporting a 0% or 1.0 shift, a non-shift. That said, I have Councilor Boschman.
That's it. The only thing I want to say is, don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing the city, but every time we build a residential house and they get kids, it costs the city money. There's no question about it. So we're sparing that. I stand by, and I know that it's going to sound like I repeat. The single homeowner's property went way up. Not only did the single family home go up, it's two families that went way up. The three families went way up. The four families went way up. A lot more money than what we used to get. Am I right, Mr.?
Yes, the real estate market is going up, Councilor.
Okay, yes. Now, if you look at that page that Mr. Di Natale was saying, you'll notice commercial went down by $158, and industrial went down by $545. That's what they went down. But ours went up. Ours went up because because our property went up, the value of our property. Sure, you can lower the tax rate. Sure, we can come by and say, this is a miracle, we lowered it. Look at what we're doing. Look at, we're booming. We're not booming. Our values went up. Our values went up. Look at it. Let's get the values. What my house was worth yesterday and what it's worth today. It went up. My multi-family house went way up. I know, because I'm paying over $4,000 in taxes now. So I know it went way up. So when they tell me growth, and we get Amazon coming in, that's great. I like that idea. I think we need more business. I always said that. Amazon's coming in, and they were coming in for a reason. They didn't come in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, because Fitchburg had a single tax rate. They didn't come here for that reason. They came because we're centrally located, and they got a good deal by moving into the old Simon's place. That's why they came here, and they had some people that bought that property, went out, and they were go-getters. They didn't sit around and saying, wait for me. They went to get them. So when they tell me that they came here for that reason, because they had go-getters, and that was a perfect location for them to come, right there, because they can get access to everywhere. So, and I'm very happy. Don't get me wrong, Mayor. I'm very happy they're coming. I'm not criticizing. I only got one criticism. Make sure they go through Airport Road, not Interview Road. But other than that, that's the only thing I'm trying to say. I'm not going to give you a hard time on this, but don't try to butter me up. I got my rose-colored glasses on again, but I don't want to embarrass the council because I don't think we're doing that good. Personally, I don't feel we're doing that good. We talked about Game On. That was coming on for a number of years. That was supposed to come on, I think, 2 years after they come in front of us. And what are we, 5, 6, 7 years after? And we get a different owner? And I'm not criticizing, but it looks beautiful up there. I've been up there because I looked up there numerous times up there. It was really nice. But, I'm saying that we got to do better than what we do, especially in the commercial and industrial versus residential. And that way there I call it a boom then. I say Fitchburg is turning the corner, but right now I can't say that. I look at the fact that my property went up, way up, and the only one that's benefited is the people that are selling right now on today's market. They're booming. And I just got a thing in the mail that housing is starting to go back down. It's not going back up anymore. It's heading down the other way. So I just wanted to tell Mr. DiNatale that $157, $158 for commercial went down, and they can afford it more than the residential, and the industrial went down, let's say $550. And they can afford it more than I can, especially when I'm on a retired person. So I wanted to say that. Thank you very much, and that'll be the last time I speak.
Yes, it will, as a matter of fact. Very briefly,
if I may-
Counselor, this is why I actually explained the whole pie thing.
I heard you.
Because we know residential valuations went way up. We know the personal property, including $1 million from Unitil, went way up. That's why the relative share for industrial and commercial went down slightly, because more was diverted, particularly into the personal property sector. Would that be correct?
Yes. If I may, though, just to get back to a point you had asked about earlier, about the 50% growth in the residential, I must have had the 2020 fog. But if anybody here, and I assume you've all lived through 2020, new growth for residential isn't just homes. That was the point I was making, was there were 16 new homes that are selling for over $500,000, which has never happened in the city before. But in 2020, you'll remember the price of materials went through the roof because everyone was fixing their house. Anytime somebody adds to their house, that's also new growth attributed to that 50% or that $20 million that they didn't have the year prior. So I just wanted to put that out there for clarification.
Thank you. Next up, I have Counselor Fleming.
Just want to make a couple of comments. I do remember when business left Fitchburg because we had the dual rate. I do see businesses coming back in a big way, regardless of what the counselor to my right says. And I want to know when it's why it's bad when home values go up. It's a good thing when home values go up. I know in other communities they have a lower tax rate, but their homes are valued much higher than ours. They're paying probably more than we're paying in taxes. So I think people don't understand that everything is just relative to what's going on. But home values going up is a good thing for us, not a bad thing. So I think we need to stop portraying it as it's some evil force that is hitting us. We want to embrace the increase of our homes. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to comment on the previous statement that was made about why Amazon came. I don't care why they came.
They're here, and they're gonna bring 200 to 300 jobs. That's all I care about. And the other thing, in terms of the property values going up, isn't that investing 101? You want your investment to pay off. You want it to increase. And so I think Councilor Di Natale brought out the point, the residents pay more because we're more of the tax base right now. So am I correct in saying that? So it's not about we getting ripped off. It is what it is right now until we can increase our commercial base. Am I making any sense?
Yes.
Does that make sense? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Di Natale for the second time.
In the years when we had a dual tax rate, we were moving taxes to the business community. We were disproportionately charging them more. For 40 years, we charged them way more than the residents. These decreases are in a way a course correction, because for those 40 years where we disproportionately hurt them, they're now getting some breaks that they didn't get for the last 40 or 50 years. And I will say one thing here about the valuations. While the valuations are through the roof, it further reinforces my earlier point that the tax rate and the average single-family home tax increase is the lowest it's been in at least 6 years. When the valuations go up collectively, the increases are smaller. If the valuations drop, but the 2.5% increase goes up, the tax bill goes up. Again, from 2015, 16, 17, 18, when home values were a fraction of what they are today, they were paying triple or almost quadruple the increase that they're paying right now. So there's an inverse relationship. When you have your valuations on the residential side collectively dropping, your tax increase is bigger because you're raising the levy. When you have valuations collectively skyrocketing, even with the increase in valuation surpasses the increase in the levy. That's why the tax increase is smaller. So to discount the increase in our residential valuations would suggest that you would rather have a decrease in valuations, which will go back to the days of 2015 when we were charging residents more than triple what they're getting charged now. So that is just basic math from this document. Higher valuations lead to lower taxes. Lower valuations lead to higher taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. One counselor has requested a point of information. On page 26, the fifth column in the upper left table, the personal property valuation seems to be considerably lower than the 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year average. Is there a particular cause of that?
Yeah, because the well, there are a couple of reasons, but the main reason was the amount of new growth attributed to Unitil was substantially lower this year than it has been in the past. Typically, when you look at the personal property, about 90% of that growth is through Unitil. This year, the Department of Revenue has required cities and towns to do a different valuation method to value public utilities. And with that came a substantial increase to the tune of about, I believe it was $64 million in value, of which about 13 million or 12 million of it was attributed to Unitil and National Grid or New England Telephone, one of the telecommunication companies. And that's why there was a substantial decrease there, whereas we picked it up in the actual valuation of personal property, which increased by about, as I said, 64 million, I believe was the number.
All right. Thank you. And just to confirm for my colleagues, this table that we're looking at here is the amount of new growth in each sector, not the total valuation of the sector.
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further questions or comments from councilors? Councilor Van Hazinga.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's clear that the best avenue to control long-term increases in taxes for residential homeowners is to stimulate more investment in commercial and industrial properties. That is the way that the tax burden is not shifted to the residents, that the residents don't pay more and more every year. And what happened over the close to 40 years that we had a dual tax rate is that the commercial and industrial investment in our city plummeted. It didn't die overnight. It took decades for it to happen, but it did happen. Now that we've gone back to a single tax rate, we are moving in the right direction. We are having more commercial and industrial growth. It's not going to happen overnight, just like it didn't die overnight. But we are moving back in the right direction, and this is the best path we have to control the long-term property taxes that residents will pay.
Thank you. Councilor Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. President. And there was a comment made that the reason that Amazon came here certainly wasn't because of the single tax rate. But first of all, we don't know that. And I think with all other things being equal, if someone is looking to develop or to invest in commercial or industrial business in anywhere, and everything else is equal, and they're going to pay more in taxes here than they're going to pay somewhere else, they're going to go somewhere else. And so by virtue of the single tax rate, that gives us one more tool in the box to draw commercial and industrial investment. And I think that that's going to be, as Councilor Van Hazinga said, that's the one way. It's not going to happen overnight, but that will gradually reduce the residential tax rate. Thank you.
All right, if all councilors have been heard, I would like to ask if anyone in the audience would like to speak on this matter. Please approach the podium and identify yourself by name and address. Seeing none, if all have been heard, I declare the hearing closed, and the matter is before the council.
Move to set the rate at 100.
Second.
I have a motion and second to set the rate at 100, which, to clarify, is no shift. Anyone speaking on the motion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Kuchar.
Yes.
Counselor D'Anatali.
Yes.
Counselor Fleming.
Yes.
Counselor Green.
Yes.
Counselor Hughes.
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Squalia.
Aye.
Counselor Van Hazinga.
Yes.
Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
President Zarella.
Yes.
Counselor Boschman.
No.
Okay, that's 10 to 1.
All right. Motion passes, and that concludes the agenda of this special meeting of the council.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Councilor.
I have a motion and second to adjourn. If there are no objections, we are adjourned.